Hello, and welcome to another episode of Rewrites and Reboots podcast, where we look at bad movies and ask the ultimate question: can this be fixed with rewrites, or is it so bad that only a full reboot can save the day? As always, my name is Richard, and with me is my brother Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert.
Alright, so we have a different kind of movie today. I mean, it's in similar genres, but a movie that we did not even have on our list to start with when we started planning this show. But we saw it was on Netflix. We decided to throw it on. It was a movie I'd never watched, but I had heard it was so bad, I had chose my entire life to try to live happily without seeing it. But Robert was like, we've got to do that one for this podcast. So here we are. Today, we are looking at 2015's Jupiter Ascending,
Yes.
the Mila Kunis and Channing Tatum sci-fi thriller.
Listen, I actually liked them in the movie, to be honest. It's just the way the movie was made and the way it was directed and the script is bad, but the actors are fine.
Yeah, and I looked into this movie a little bit after watching it. So apparently it was made by the same twins that did the Matrix series, which
Yeah, the
gets you excited.
Wachowski.
Yeah, the Wachowski twins, and was put together by Warner Brothers to be the next big sort of intellectual property franchise that they could create. Right? They wanted to do something that they could keep making movies off of. And apparently the original concept was Odyssey meets Wizard of Oz. Right? What we got was a shiny penny in a, you know, heap of shit.
I don't know if I would say it's a shiny penny in a heap of shit. It's a movie that different points of times it wants to be a different movie than it was before. So like you start off and it's just like a plain uh movie about a girl who is lost, and then it becomes this kind of bounty hunter chase scene stuff, and then after a while it's a political thriller, then it becomes a like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy for a second there for a weird DMV scene to establish her as a royalty, and then it goes into sci-fi action. And all of this is a Frankenstein of a movie that if they had stuck with one or the other, it probably would have been a much better movie. Or if they had naturally switched the themes in a way, this, like if you watch the Hunger Game movies, those three movies, each one are style or thematically are different from one another, but they're all the same, movies in a sense, right? And you can get over the weird, the first one being this, you know, battle royale, slaughter game thing, to the second one being a political thriller, to the last one being a war movie. This movie doesn't do it that very well at all.
Also, just want to point out, I think that the lady who did Hunger Games, just think about how big battle royale games are now, and how ahead of the curve she was on trends. To be honest, like I know that had been done before, but right before like that sort of battle royale stuff became more popularized, her book series came out in the movies, and now we're into a world where that is like people are trying to live out the Hunger Games all the time in every game.
Well, when those movies came out, everybody built Hunger Games in Minecraft.
That is true.
Because I used to play those all the time before we start officially calling them battle royales.
Yeah, that is true. Um, but yeah, this movie I think was hurt from the beginning by a couple of bad choices. One, like you said, was not having clear direction or style or thematic theme that they were looking for, and two, I think it was being stuck to the rating. I think they were pretty much pigeonholed that it had to be a PG-13, and I actually thought this movie had a lot of elements that really would have played better had we gone for a full R. I think this would have worked more if you'd gone like, Alien, Blade Runner, in the kind of the vein of those kind of movies.
Mm-hmm.
It would have worked because those movies, because not being restricted to that rating so much, are able to explore themes at a much deeper level and really can pursue them better.
I mean, so you, I think you can explore some of the themes in this movie with the PG-13 rating. Now, I think what really hurt it was the forced love stuff because it's completely against her character in the beginning, and then her fall in love with the what was his name, Kane Wise.
Kane Wise, the Wolfman.
The Wolfman, fall in love with him after basically knowing him for 2 days. And then talking about, oh, it sucks to fall in love with the wrong guy at the right times, and it's like, you were not even a day ago talking about love is a concept that does not exist. So don't give me that bullshit.
Yeah, I think that was some of the things that they messed up is they don't establish her character very well
No.
beforehand before we're plopped into it. Also, I didn't like a big thing I didn't like early on to the movie was the world jumping. There was too much back and forth for you to really comprehend what we're doing. Right? We
Mm-hmm.
were constantly going from Earth to this to that before even any of the plots really like developed. We've jumped 3 planets within the first 10 minutes of the movie before the plot even starts moving. Really,
Yeah.
none of those scenes gave us really anything. Did not establish things, and I think that the first 15-20 minutes of the movie should be all about building the foundation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You build the foundation right, you can build off of it from there and go crazy, right? But if you do not put in the work for that first 15 or 20 minutes, and I know sometimes it can be a little slow and people like the action and stuff, but I think storytelling wise, if you're going to tell an endearing story or something that's going to connect to people, all the great movies start off with a building a great foundation. Star Wars, you know, build it. It does. The first
Yeah.
20 minutes of that movie, we spend a lot of time exploring Luke as a person. What is he doing? The
Yeah, but
developments.
but
There's
you also have to think about when Star Wars opens up, it's literally spaceship chase into Vader mowing down people and force choking a guy.
yes,
So there's a
but
little bit
there's
of action right there in the beginning.
yes, but the way it's done is such a way to the establishes who the bad guys are and establishes someone that we're going to that's going to be important later on. Princess Leia when she gets captured. We know that that's going to be explored and at least, used later on. So we set that up. Those are setup moments. We set up who the bad guys were, who the good people are, and then we explored Luke and showed who Luke was. So we within that first 20 to 30 minutes of the film, we've established two good characters, right? And at least one bad guy who had almost, I think his total time in the first movie was 11 minutes of Darth Vader, right?
Yeah.
I think the first movie he has 11 minutes of screen time, yet he is the most memorable, some of the most memorable moments on screen in that first movie are the Darth Vaders,
Yeah.
right? And it could be said because he was used sparingly that when he was on screen, you knew shit was about to go down.
Yeah.
But like I was saying, you've got to build a foundation right first. You can go with action in the beginning and stuff if it gives you something, right? If it establishes something from the get go. This movie didn't. It kind of does and it kind of doesn't. Like we get a little bit of like she's an immigrant and this and that and the other, and her father gets killed and all that. I, you know, but we don't establish her. We establish her parents and where she comes from, right? But
Yeah.
we don't establish her as a person. What does she really believe? We get her, and what we do learn of her, like you said, are complete contradictions of how she behaves the rest of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, we don't learn anything about her to even give her a real character like arc at all. Who she is roughly in the beginning of the movie is who she is at the end of the movie. Mine or added a title to it. A title and a boyfriend. That's all her development is. Before she is just some girl whose father loved, the stars and loved space, who got killed. She was born on a boat on the way to America, and then um, she cleans bathrooms and is sort of friendly with a girl that's rich who treats her like a friend. And then she's got like a shitty family life, but really we don't get nothing about who she is as a person. We get what is around her, but we don't know. I mean, she could have been a dirtbag person for all we know. She could have been a hopeless romantic. She could have been depressed. She could have been, you know, schizophrenic. We wouldn't know a damn thing from this movie because we know everything around her, but we don't know her. And so by the time you get into the rest of the movie and you're supposed to actually care for her, you're basically caring for a dummy. You know, they could have stuck one of Jeff Dunham's dummies up there, and we would have cared more about it than she, because there isn't anything about her.
No,
There's
she is a very shallow character, and it really hurt Mila Kunis's performance and stuff. Is that you could tell that's the direction they wanted to go, right? But it also hurt her because you could replace her with any actress, any sort of shallow actress, right?
you could
And
have
it could work. You could, like you said, replace her with a dummy. She has nothing about her is important or has any relevance to the story that's going around her. Around her.
no, and the only thing that matters with her is her existence,
Hmm.
right? It None of her actions, for the most part, really matter, right? She doesn't have any true agency that gives her any that like she doesn't have any control of the situation. She doesn't have any sort of agency in this situation. She goes with the flow up until the very end. And even then, she doesn't really do anything other than, decide not to sign that one contract. And that's it. She just kind of exists. She goes with the flow, and she's boring.
Yeah. So that's another. Yeah. So she's very boring. Other parts of the movies that I did not like off the bat, like I said, was the editing in it is poorly done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really poor editing, really choppy moments, which do not work very well. It's poorly edited. Um,
Which is so surprising when you think about this is written and directed by the people who made The Matrix, which was at the time considered the greatest movie as far as editing and whatnot at that point,
Yes,
with the
because
way
most
that
of the camera techniques used in the Matrix were created on the spot for those scenes.
yeah, they were revolutionary tactics, and this is just so off for the editing. It really makes you wonder do the Wachowskis actually do anything in the movie, or there's somebody else involved? Because there's compared to the Matrix, this movie is so bad. I mean, even compared to the Matrix 3, which is the worst of the Matrix movies, you're still looking at a much cleaner, much nicer shot movie than this movie is.
Yeah, that is true, and I think that a lot of times it happens. I think the Matrix had a much smaller budget for sure, and I think a lot of times when you give a director a smaller budget, right, especially a hungry director, they'll do ways to squeeze it and create masterpieces, right? Look at the first Deadpool movie; it was given a dismal budget compared to other superhero movies of its time, and yet it had fantastic work done on it. Fantastic CGI, fantastic editing, fantastic timing. This movie had none of that. It had no good timing. Another big sticking point was the soundtrack, right? The soundtrack did not match most moments in the movie, right? Like you said earlier, with her having to go that DMV scene, right, which was very much a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy kind of scene. The music playing at that moment is like epic going into battle music when at that moment, because of the sort of hilarity they're trying to portray, I would have said you should have gone with almost elevator music, right? Something very just, la di da di da, just something like that. So it kind of brings that moment down, like these sudden pauses of like, oh, we got to take care of this first, right? And then those scenes I think would have landed better, right? I feel like this movie has things to work with, but when you don't edit a movie correctly, you can destroy a movie purely by poor editing and by poor soundtracks,
Yeah.
right? And sound design. These two things, no, I don't care if you could take the greatest directors alive, take their movie and edit it like they did this movie, it'll destroy it. You could destroy classics like E.T., Platoon, any of these great movies,
Saving Private Ryan was another good edited one.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
These are movies that you know, are good, not just because of how they're filmed, but how they're edited. Every part of a movie can make or break it, right? And when you get lazy, like they did with this movie, it showed, right? There's nothing interesting about it. It's just cut here, cut here. Like you said, there's just so much that's wrong with it, and we haven't even scratched the surface on like other characters or the confusing stylization and at times almost Super Mario's live action goofy, sort of monsters. A lot of them kind of felt kind of gimmicky, you know?
Yeah.
So there was poor, character designs, poor, it's just poor all around.
Yeah. And that's before we even get into the plot itself, too. The plot is really weird. So the movie, for the most part, is about this girl who is on Earth. She's fairly insignificant, right? She cleans. She's a maid. She cleans apartments and stuff in Chicago, and because of some random happen chance, she has the same genetic profile as this transhuman woman who's lived like 93 millennia that owned Earth. And because her genetic profile matches that woman's profile, she now owns Earth. Or she can claim she owns Earth. Which, again, that doesn't make sense at all. Then, so because she has a claim to Earth as owning it, then all of a sudden all these people want to either kill her, marry her, or just have her be their friend. And this weird political sideshow thing, which, by the way, if the kids that were, well, I call them kids, they were the matriarch's children, right? They're a couple millennium old themselves. But if they had put these characters in any sort of show, like say Game of Thrones, where political dealings is the name of the business, these three would have been murdered within the first 5 minutes of them showing up on the screen. You got one girl who just shows off, who tries to be friendly with the Jupiter, and she just, shows her, hey, this is what we do. This is how our product works, which is basically they harvest humans that they have growing on planets like Earth for a youth serum that you bathe in, and it makes you younger. She just shows her and is like, we can be friends, and then after that, we never see her again. Then the second one is the son. I think it's the youngest son.
Yeah, Titus.
Yeah, Titus.
The next one was Titus, who's sort of like the bachelor son. He's into space orgies. We got a little bit of that.
Yeah.
And stuff. He's sort of just a laid backy kind of character that's just like whatever.
His whole plot is he wants to marry Jupiter so that he can be, because he's her husband, have claim over Earth, and then he's going to kill her. A very, I don't know, just, you could see that plot a mile away. In fact, the dumbest person in the whole room, which was the wolf guy, saw that plot coming 100 miles away. And then the last guy, his whole thing is he goes onto Earth, kidnaps this Jupiter's family and then holds them as hostage, even though he wasn't allowed to go on Earth because it has claim of Earth. So that's basically a declaration of war, since they treat these kids as though each one of them rule a nation somewhat. It's like a corporation nation thing. But that's basically a declaration of war. And by this point, Jupiter's got herself an army, which just suddenly appear out of nowhere. I still have no idea how the fuck, where, like, these people that picked them up off of Earth and was helping Wise, like, I have no idea who they were. They just were there. Suddenly she has a spaceship with a full crew and an army, basically. And they could have at any point in time gone to war for her, instead of her having to put herself in a dangerous situation and almost have to put herself into committing suicide in order to save Earth, but basically killing her and her family to save Earth. And it's the weirdest plot. Like, somebody did not spend any time trying to figure out how to manipulate people in a political setting at all. I mean, this is the kind of crap you see on, Looney Tune cartoons.
The soap opera stuff at best.
Yeah, basically soap opera. I think soap operas would have pulled it off better.
That is true. They can string a single scene to last an entire season.
Yeah.
They don't leave the room for 12 episodes, Robert.
Yeah.
12 episodes, we're still staring at each other.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing is just stupid, and I think that's why we're talking about a straight up reboot on this one.
There's no way to fix this movie. I think there's too much. I mean, if you had all the elements that were there, like you had all the raw footage, you could probably have fixed it. But I don't think that, for us at least, you could really fix it. There's too many things that are poorly done to really rewrite it. I think it comes down to a straight reboot, like you said. Scrap everything, start back from the beginning. Let's figure out, how we would create the characters and what would the story actually be. Because I feel like 75% of this movie is completely gone from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
You're starting completely over. I think that before we get to character anything, really I would want to know, for me, what would be the sort of tonality of the movie? Where do you think it should be? Should it be more like Alien, more horror-esque feeling, or do you go more, mythology-esque, Game of Thrones level space odyssey, space opera?
I think that's part of where we would go, because the thing is, you're basically, the way the story is, you're dealing with 3 empire corporations, all vying for control of Earth. And because they want it. And the thing is, this isn't the only planet that humans are on that they're harvesting for this. It's just one. And it's not even special. There's nothing important about Earth that makes it any more special than, Vervoc 5 down 3, galaxies down the lane. It's just there.
Yes, but they have to have it. I have to have Earth.
Exactly. It's really the whole plot of it kind of just stems from them, very much someone who is, they put Earth to be more important than it is, because the audience will, being that we're Earthlings, we are more attached to Earth than anything else. But the reality is that Earth wasn't any more special than any of the other planets that humans were on, but they fought over it, and literally one of them dies over it, and it's like, why? You could have just let Jupiter have Earth and let it be.
Yeah, you could have just not told her about her entire thing.
Yeah.
She would have lived and died without knowing anything, and then they would have had claim to it anyways, because she would have died like a normal human, and supposedly you people live for tens of thousands of years. You could have waited her out.
Yeah, exactly. Or harvest without giving a shit because nobody would have. Who's the? That's another thing. There is no. We didn't see any sort of like galactic government either. It's really just corporations that have some sort of weird bureaucracy rule between them. That like a gentleman's agreement, more or less. That's and that's kind of weird too.
That will
Like,
break for other things,
yeah,
but not for this specific thing.
yeah. You can't harvest the earth because the genetic genetically identical woman to your matriarch who was in control of all of these things before died, and that's her genetic doppelganger on that planet. So now suddenly you can't harvest it because she owns it. And it's like, but she has absolutely no relations to the woman. She has no claim for royalty other than she's there. It made no sense. So, yeah. Scrapping all that, I would look at it as I would go political. I might go a little light political, like not get into the nitty gritties of it, but definitely put some sort of uh, battle that is like a courtroom drama kind of battle where like you know what the characters are saying are more important than swords and sorcery and stuff like that. But I don't know. That's how I think it should go. But then again, there should be some action, and I think maybe towards the end, if everything falls apart, that's when it starts to get into the actionist sort of thing. But you would keep it low. You wouldn't make it like huge space battles or a city being destroyed. Not in my mind.
I would disagree. I think that I see where you're going with it, but I actually would go more. A good example of a movie that does, or a movie franchise that I think you could work off of both politically and action wise, is the Riddick series, right? The first
Mm-hmm.
Riddick movie, which was Pitch Black, I believe, is the start of it, right?
Yeah.
If I remember, it's been a long time since I watched this movie. But that movie starts off as a almost, straight up action movie. And I think if you went with, this girl being the bastard son of her father, who was the matriarch before, who had her in secret with his love woman, you know, lover on Earth, right? And but it was sort of a forbidden love kind of thing, right? You're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to mate with people you're harvesting, right? It's
Yeah.
against it, that sort of thing. And have it where that's where she gets her claim because she's a bastard child, but she was like firstborn or something, whatever. I think if you went more that route, now she has a reason for it, makes her unique. Also, I would make her a slightly hopeless romantic if you were gonna pull in the romance thing, but I would let it kind of go farther and develop much slower in the same instance that say um, the Underworld series did with their romance, right? In that movie, we really didn't have the characters fully connect, right, love, until midway into the second movie. They
Yeah.
sort of were together by the end of the first, but they didn't fully commit to that relationship to a second. So I think this movie would actually work better as a trilogy, but if you set it up in a different way so that each movie, like you said, kind of with Hunger Games, is each movie is a distinctly different movie that covers different aspects. I think the world that they were trying to build was too big for the time in which they were given,
Yeah.
right? And it was a 2 hour long movie. They went full on 2 hours, but you know, there was so much they were trying to create and build. I felt like you had to bring it down and let's focus on the core story and worry about the broader outreaches and the broader implications of what's going on for future installments. You tried to cram everything into a little pickle jar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it needed to be a fucking, tanker, right,
Yeah.
of space. You didn't have enough space for everything you were trying to do. So in some ways, the movie was too ambitious for what it needed to do. And I think that what happens with movies like this is the ambition overweighs and outtakes the story, right? When it becomes like I said in the beginning, a shiny nickel where you're trying to be the most, crazy looking landscapes and crazy aliens and the most unique this and unique that, and everybody's got this unique thing about them, right? But then your main character is nothing. She is the least important thing, and the a main character, especially in this instant should be like a diamond in the dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
She should outshine everybody. There should be a reason that she's there, because and that makes her the most important element to the story, because without it everybody's a diamond. You make nobody matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think this movie, you would have to start, go more the action, go more that she's the bastard son, and have it where on her 18th birthday or something she receives a letter from her father who had died and had kept a secret, to tell her, hey, now that you become an adult, I want you to know that you have an inheritance. Here's a pendant to show that's the royal seal or something, right? That is my claim, right? And have it where, people in the corporation royal family people find out about this letter, or find out about it, and send someone out there to try to kill her before she can take the throne, right? Have the whole first movie be her trying to get what's rightfully hers, right? Have that
Mm-hmm.
whole first movie just be her trying to outlive the hunters and the assassins, right?
Yeah.
Make it a full on, just a chasing, constantly moving. Then you have it where, the person that sent to kill her was, just realizes that she's a part of this royal family, and like he has a special place for that family. Like, say he has some sort of history, like
Yeah.
his father was, like a royal guard or something to this previous king, or something that makes it where he has a connection to that family. And then you have it where he relentlessly decides not to kill her because of that bond, right? And instead becomes her protector, and then it becomes them battling out. And that way, by the time we get to the end of the movie, she has gone through a horrendous journey with this one person, and being that she's a hopeless romantic, kind of falls for him that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you would definitely spend the first parts of it like establishing who she is, and first 10, 15 minutes, and you could clue in that stuff is happening. Like the guy that's sent after her, the is supposed to be like this half human, half wolf hybrid, right? And one of the ideals that I had was he's supposed to be, really dangerous, and he's supposed to have done something where he doesn't remember doing it, but he did something terrible. So I had this ideal. Since he's supposed to be a werewolf or a wolf person, why not make him a werewolf? Like an alien werewolf. That the bad thing that happened to him was he wolfed out of control and hurt a bunch of people, right? And so now he works as a mercenary, and he's been hired to kill this random girl. He don't know her or anything about it. But while we're established in Jupiter, right? She could be like walking down the street, and he's like watching her, and she notices, but then a car or a bus or something goes by, and then he's gone. And then later on, she's at a bar talking to her friend or something, and she catches a glimpse of him through like a mirror or something. And that way, you kind of get an idea that something's happening, and she gets an idea that something's happening, but she can't tell what it is. She thinks it's just some creepy stalker. No idea that this is an intergalactic assassin werewolf after her ass. And then we were talking about it like maybe since her father had this thing about telescopes, right? And the stars. Maybe she has her father's telescope and then finds some sort of pendant inside, like the base. And then that was something that shows that she's royal, right? And then eventually the werewolf guy sees that when he's supposed to go kill her, he doesn't. And so other assassins get sent, and then he protects her because and that's how that whole thing starts.
Yeah, and so then you have the entire first movie be about them trying to outlast all the other assassins and all the sort of shenanigans that's going on.
And figure
For,
out
for
why she has the pendant and who she truly
Yeah,
is.
and once they figure out who she is, trying to get her to the right people so that she can, claim her title because her father, while he is gone, his people or his organization are still there ready and waiting. So if she can just make it to them, right, she'll have protection under the law. She'll be a bona fide person, and now she'll have the rights to everything. And if they can, because if she gets that, the game's over, at least for this movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the rest of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and so you would have chase scenes and stuff like that. Now, one of the things that I did not like with this movie is that when we did chase scenes, we were literally destroying entire cities with like spaceships and shit, chasing this girl down. And then, when she mentioned how all these people die and blah blah blah, and they're like, yeah, well, they'll erase everybody's memory and have that all fixed by next week or by tomorrow. Nobody will even remember. I didn't like that. I would like to keep the chase scenes to a low down grounded foot on foot, or commandeering cars. Yeah, they could use laser pistols to shoot and stuff that could be easily dismissed by some people, but I would not have like an actual freaking dogfight space battle over Chicago.
I know how you fix that. A good movie that does that does a lot of chase scenes and a lot of action, and but does just enough to keep it grounded and low key that it could pass as random violence. John Wick.
Yeah.
John Wick does a good job of that. That movie constantly has people shooting each other and running around the city, but it's done in such a way that most onlookers are going to assume it's some random acts of violence, right?
Yeah.
Some crazy people. It's not going to be entire buildings being destroyed, because if multiple buildings in a major city suddenly were exploding, right? That would be literally like I told you during the movie. The president of the United States would be on television within an hour talking about, we've been attacked, this, that, other. We don't know who it is, but we're going to find out, right?
Yeah.
It would change the fabric of everything. And if they were to have it happen and to have that stupid cop out, like you had, cop out, to say, oh, well, all the buildings were repaired and everybody's brains will be erased. Well, what about those that you don't get? Well, they'll be thought as crazy people. So we'll get away with this. It's like,
I mean,
no, if you're gonna go that crazy, then you have to live with the consequences of that.
and the thing that they showed is that these guys aren't even smart enough to go through somebody's phone and erase the pictures, right?
Yeah.
Because she took a picture of the aliens abducting her friend, and then when they had erased her memory, they didn't erase the picture on the phone because she finds it later, right? So you're gonna tell me that you're gonna erase everybody's cell phone, or you're gonna know to erase everybody's cell phones, erase all the film, the closed caption, everybody's security. You're gonna do all that in one night, but you couldn't even remember to erase one person's cell phone. That's not happening. I'm sorry. That's stupid. It was already shown that it was a fallible system. There would have been enough evidence of that to show up.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I've said none of that. It would be like you said, like a John Wick on the street shoot. Yeah, you're fighting aliens who can turn invisible, but it would still be in such a way that it feels like a grounded. They're on the street, stealing bicycles and cars and hiding in alleyways and shit while being shot at with lasers.
Yeah, I could understand the destruction getting more once we got out in the county and country, like when we have it where,
Like the farm.
like the farm. Like I liked it when Kane, the Wise, the wolf guy, takes her to his former general, his former commander, Stinger, to his farm. Like I enjoyed that. Though I thought the bees on the wall stuff and her being able to control bees and, oh, they sense royals, or royalty
Yeah.
or whatever, was dumb. I think it was way too cliche. Like, I got his name was Stinger. We don't need him to have a house full of bees and have bees everywhere for his name to be Stinger. He could just be fucking Stinger.
Yeah.
Right? You could say his name was Stinger because he was good at, like, close hand-to-hand combat with a knife in battle or something, right?
Yeah,
he was good at quick assassinations with blades.
Or it could just be his name.
Yeah.
Some people have names like butcher or whatnot doesn't mean they're actually meat cutters.
Yeah.
Or butler doesn't mean you're actually a butler. I've known butlers before.
That is also true. Like
He could just
it's
have the last name Stinger or the name Stinger.
yeah, like that was fine. I could understand if like they get there and he tells them what's going on and they have their argument. I'm fine with them two having that rocky history and being
Uh
back
huh.
and forth. That I loved. Also, Sean Bean didn't die in this movie, so that automatically gives me an F for this movie.
Oh
I just
yeah.
realized he did not die.
I thought he did die.
No, he
No,
doesn't.
no. He gets. He just basically just fades from the into the shadows.
Yeah, yeah, he
Yeah.
didn't die. What a shame.
Yeah.
F. This movie's an F. Automatically. Sean Bean is in a movie and doesn't die, it's not worth seeing. But, anyways, I could see where they get there, they have their confrontation with each other, but they work it out for the betterment because Stinger was a loyalist to that group as well,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And as they're trying to figure out what their next move's going to be, because there's a blockade on Earth, they're not going to be able to get out, right? Which I like that strategy of them being blocked on Earth for a minute, right? That was cool. Have it where the assassins show up there and it turns into a big old gunfight, and like the whole house gets blown up or something, right?
Well, all right. So about that argument, I had this idea.
Okay.
All right. Instead of the argument being about their past stuff so much, right? I would like the argument about Stinger being a retired commander or whatnot. He recognizes what's going on and he tells, Wise, the wolf guy, listen, why did you bring this shit to me? Do you understand what you're getting into? This is way deeper, way bigger than anything you've ever been in. You should have just done your job. And even though, which confuses the hell out of Wise because he's like, but she's a royal. She is, important. He's like, yeah, and that's a huge fucking target. And I'm trying to live my life out here with my daughter, and I'm not trying to get into all this. If you were smart, you would turn around and put a hole in her head and go collect your credits and be done with this. Do not do this, son. And let that be the argument. But eventually he he convinces Stinger to help them, if only because he owes him. Right? Maybe Stinger owes Wise something. But so he does help him, but by doing so, it causes the assassins to come in, and then we could establish a little bit of everybody's backstory because Stinger knows Wise before all this, right? And that could be our point of conflict between the two.
Yeah, because I feel like you could take a moment at that moment in this movie and pause a little bit, give our audience a breather, have it where, because I also felt like that scene felt a little rushed. We were
Yeah,
barely there for a minute. I felt like uh, a good example of how to do, ironically, a good, midpoint of a movie on a farm was Avengers Age of Ultron, right?
yeah,
We were in the middle of high stakes things going on, but then we took a pause for character development,
yeah,
right? And it worked. It didn't feel forced. It felt natural. They've escaped. They're hiding out. They don't know where they're at right this second, right?
mm-hmm.
So they have a moment to pause. So then you could learn a bit about the Wolfman. She could also learn a little bit about her father. Like maybe Stinger knew her father or something and talks
Well,
about how, he was a good man and this and that and the other, and I was proud to serve him or something like that. So you establish that there's, a connection there as well.
yeah, and it could be at this point, he doesn't, they don't know anything other than she's got this royal necklace,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being hunted. It's the singer who's like, no, I know who your father was. Your father was king of blah blah blah. He owned Earth. His family, his people owned the everything up until his death, and you are now his rightful heir to his empire. We start to establish that kind of stuff. But again, Stinger starts off not wanting to help. Then you turn around, Stinger helps him, but he isn't happy about it,
No.
right? Because he just doesn't want to get into all this crap. and then the farm happen. You know, the attack on the farm happens, and then I would do it either one of two ways. Either do it like the movie does, where she gets captured, or do it where up until this point we haven't really seen Wise go full on wolf. Like he tells her, a little bit about him. Stinger even tells about, his story of how he went full on wolf and went out of control, and that's why, he got removed from service or whatnot. And I would have it like during the fight, he full on wolfs out, right? Almost kills her in the process of all this fighting and stuff, and that puts a little bit of a hindrance between her. She's now afraid of him, where before she saw him as protector, now she's seen his ugly side, when he wolfs out, and that's kind of scares her, right? And we establish, more about him too, that he can't really control this. Any moment he could just boom wolf.
Yeah, I can see that working. The only thing I did not like about that is I see the point of using it and all the good parts that it does that. I just feel weird story wise to have it where we just learn or get sort of told that he can't control it, and then he immediately loses control in this. You know what I
Well,
mean? I
well,
almost feel like that needs to move forward a little bit farther down the line.
well. I
But if
had
you do that, you also lose the ability to create that subplot of her fear of
well. All
him.
right. So I had, and I think I said something to you last night after we watched this. The ideal of maybe there's some sort of inhibitor in the back
Mm-hmm.
of the neck that's supposed to control it that isn't working, or at least he thinks it isn't working. That's supposed to control that, and then we find out later on it's somebody else clicking the button and forcing him to turn wolf with that.
Yeah.
So we could probably show like some sort of light flash real quick before he turns. So it's definitely something he's not controlling, but somebody else is.
Yeah.
And then we kind of that'll become a bigger plot later on as we uncover that little mystery. Put a little subplot of his werewolf stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I can work with that then.
Yeah, but then after that would be either she gets captured or she runs away and gets captured from somehow, right? I Either way she gets captured and she's brought up, and that's where we would go into the next movie or whatever if we were going to go to another movie, and that's when we would get into the more political stuff of the relatives or shit.
Well, see, I would not end with her being kidnapped. Just like I would have her get kidnapped. I feel like she's gonna have to. That's the only way we're getting her off the planet because they never come up with a way for them, to feasibly break out the blockade. So her getting captured is important. But I think I would at least end the movie where we're establishing that it's now the tone of the next movie is going to be drastically different by having her meet one of these royals, right?
Yeah.
Like the last scene is, the Wolfman and Stinger now on Earth, because he went wolf, they were able to escape, but she gets captured. So that leaves them having to go get her, and then leaving it with her being captured by one of the royals, and
Mhm.
have it where, she learns it and he gives her some little thing about, welcome, sister, because, we had wanted to establish that they were like stepchildren to the king or something like
Yeah.
that, right? And have that be your ending where now you have these two that are on the race to now get her, right? Save her. And now she's been dropped into this political world, and have it where that royal plays off at the beginning of the next movie as, as him being nice. That it was them trying to rescue her. Or to,
You could do the daughter, the one that just showed that tried to be friendly with her
that
and
is
showed
true.
her. You could have that as the one that captured her on the guise of she wants to protect her because she knows that her family is plotting, and even though she doesn't have anything directly to gain from it, she thinks that by helping a sister more or less out helps her in the long terms.
Yeah, I would, yeah,
And
that way you now go into the next movie and then could get into the political stuff. But focus on the first movie being all about that chase, plus having her end up being caught anyways, which makes the entire movie void in a way, like all their effort, more defeating, as well as for an audience member to go, wait, it didn't go good? I mean, you basically going Empire Strikes Back at the end of that movie as
Well,
your first movie, and I love that.
well, if you're doing like a hero's journey kind of thing, now you're at the bottom of the wheel where the hero is at its lowest,
Yeah.
and then you start up to the rise. So
Isn't that
you're
Campbell? Like the Thousand Faces of a Hero?
I I don't know. I just know it's called the hero's journey.
I'm almost positive that comes from
And
a
the
book
only
from like the 60s that like George
it's
Lucas was a big fan of.
no, it's actually Greek. It's a Greek
Almost
thing.
positive though. Like there's a book that's called like The Thousand Faces of a Hero or something by like Joseph Campbell. My
I
brain is firing off with cylinders. You know how it happens.
yeah.
I know
If
random things like that.
I mean I know that the hero's journey is based off of Greek mythology.
Uh,
Yeah,
the
hero's
Hero's
journey.
Journey. Yeah, it's a Joseph Campbell. So I was right. And the Hero with a Thousand Faces. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, but anywho, that's a side note, not really necessary. Um,
Yeah, I mean it's cool to think of it, and this is really a hero's journey movie when you get down to it, Now we've gone around so much. Now we're at the low point. So now it's time for her to learn more about she's at the point where she no longer has control. Now you work back up to where she learns about everything, gains that control, gains the power, and then fights the ultimate evil.
yes,
To
and I think that also allow her character to be developed because I think making her being a damsel in distress works okay in the first movie, but I think moving forward you'd have to turn her into, very much her own hero, her own rescuer. In the end, she's gonna have to save herself. Like they're gonna try, the
mm-hmm.
Wolfman, Kane Wise, and Stinger. They're gonna try, but ultimately, for her to gain true power, she has to conquer herself,
Yeah.
right? And have that be it, so that she becomes a true hero
Yeah,
in our sense.
she has to quickly figure out this political world, quickly learn the rules, maneuver within it, and make those difficult choices necessary to survive it so that she can basically rise up and claim power, which will require her to change who she is because up to this point she has been a just let things be kind of person. She hasn't taken the initiative in things, you know, whether it was in her life before or this whole journey. And now you have it where she is basically a very important piece in a chess game that she doesn't know the rules to. So she has to figure it out, blah, 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 and deal with figuring out who her friends and her enemies is. Because the girl that rescues her should have a plan on screwing her over at the end.
Yeah.
And it'd be something, or at least it seems that way when brought forth by one of the other brothers, right? Who then has his own plan that is, looks nice, but it's of course twisted. And then I would have that last brother, the one that kidnapped her family. I would have his plans be straight up. I'm not playing nice with you, woman. I'm putting you in tough situations so that you will fold.
Well, see, I have an idea just before we end, at least on how to open up the second movie,
Okay.
right? Just so we know where we're going. I think we should let it be that some time has passed because it's going to take the other two a while to figure out how to get off Earth, right? There was a
Mm-hmm.
blockade, and even then, it's still going to take them some time to figure out how to get off, right? Have it where she ends up with that sister for a while. The sister sort of preps her, right? And
Mm-hmm.
gets her set up for her first official, like, introduction to both the family and to as her place as a royal, right? Have the opening be her attending her first official, like
Like a
a
coronation.
coronation or a feast, right? Where she's introduced and she's properly given her place among them all, right? A coronation, something like that. Let that be the start where now she's like, not only has she been taken from her home, right? Now she's being thrown where she's being told, yes, you're a royal, you need to act like it, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
it's time for you to put on the smile and walk. and have it where the brothers are there, right? And have it where it's these sort of passive aggressiveness at like the dinner table kind of stuff, and let
Mm-hmm.
her meet them that way. So she has to play the cards that way. That way, we start with the second movie being almost tonality shift, right? In the entire timing and everything. Now it's a whole different ball game, and should feel like it,
Yeah.
right? From the very get go, it is no longer young little scared girl from Earth running, right?
Yeah.
Now she is a princess, a queen. She
Yeah.
has, and now she has, a new world that she stepped into.
Yeah, and by the time that Wise and Stinger reach her, the crude guns blazing method no longer is viable. She and they're now, especially Wise, is powerless to help her in this situation because he's not a political thing,
Yeah.
and so he can advise her and try to help her that way, but he doesn't know politics at all. He can just tell her, the kind of stuff that you would tell a friend if they were hurting or going through tough times that you've never gone through. You just give general advice.
Also, I know that the angle that the sister would be using.
Okay.
She wants to create a puppet, right? Play nicely,
Mm,
make her feel like she's in control, but be her personal advisor to everything, and
yeah.
have her thinking, if I can get on her good side and make her think I'm her friend, therefore she will take my advice in every way, and have that shown in that second movie, very much so that she's following her lead in everything. Whatever she says, she goes with it because, well, she knows best, and she's been good to me. She's taken me in and saved me from, all the killing and people trying to hunt me and everything. And let that be an angle where she's trying to create the ultimate puppet, right?
Yeah.
Turn her into her personal little puppet, because then she rules without upsetting the other factions, right? Because on the surface, she's not, taking sides. She's not
No.
doing anything out of the ordinary,
No,
right? That's
she's
how you play
she's
politics. You
yeah.
don't play politics on the throne. You play it behind the throne,
Yeah.
right? So that's how I would have her angle, at least. I
Yeah.
think that I would also, there are other things the others could do, but yeah, I would have it where the third brother, the ultimate one that we've shown as sort of the most devastating, more brutal, upfront attack,
Mhm.
right? Where the other one is also more political, twisting, trying to make her fall in love with him, right?
Yeah.
Let him slowly trying to build up that repertoire where he's trying to steal her heart to win her, right?
Yeah.
Right? And that way you play off all these different angles and have that second movie being this sort of spiral of just plots and schemes and stuff revolving around her, and her trying to keep her head above water of this world that she's now in,
Mhm. And
right?
then by the time you get to the either the end of that movie or into a third movie, that's when it's all gone to hell where she's fighting for she's fighting the ultimate fight at this point, whether it's in the schemes or the third brother has finally just snapped and gone straight for war.
Yeah, I'd say make the third movie a full fucking space war movie. Make it a fucking Saving Private Ryan in space. Let's go full hardcore war movie where now she's, the other brother has finally, that one brother, the evil one, finally goes off the deep end and decides he's tired of these games. He will have what he wants, right? And then have it where he basically goes full on declaration of war on her, and now she has to now lead a corporate nation empire in a war, right?
Yeah.
Now she's expected not only to be its royal, but be its leader. Now she's put in the position of general, right? And
Yeah.
now she's in a war that she had no, interest in. She had no skin in the game, and now we would develop in the third movie why it becomes, why this is all important to her, and what are her ultimate reasoning for staying in the fight, right? Make it where she questions why she's even here at this point. Yes, she's a royal. Yes, she's a this. But what is her skin in the game, right?
Yeah.
What makes her, right? Have it some sort of subplot where you find out her father didn't just die; he was murdered, right? And
Mhm.
that the main guy that's gone to war against her is his killer, right?
Yeah.
And now it's a getting justice for her father, right?
Yeah.
and everything. So now you set up a third movie. So the first movie is all about an action, running chase kind of thing. The second movie is all politics and the sort of dagger in the back kind of moments. And then the third movie flips the script again and goes full space war, right? Full on, that kind of thing. I think that would be such an interesting thing because you get three distinct tones in each movie that could create a very, interesting saga, really, or
So,
trilogy.
and not to bust your bubble here, but you just described the Hunger Games.
Again, that was a movie that if it wasn't a teen drama could have been cool.
Yeah.
Okay? You could have ripped out
Actually,
all that.
honestly, the movies are way better than the books anyhow on that one because the lady's writing style is so blah.
That is also true. For certain points, she is blah, but there were certain points in the books that I did like more. I felt like Rue's death had a bigger
Yeah.
impact in the books
Books.
than they do in the movies, right?
Yeah.
There's certain parts of those movies that I did not like, but overall, they were not a bad movie series, to be honest.
No.
Um,
But yeah, that's basically what we've built because with the exception of the first one being a little bit different, being a John Wick, chase movie instead of a Hunger Games, violent, bloody movie. Then you go to the political of the second movie and war of the third movie. You basically made the Hunger Games, but in space and about a princess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But I think that's a good franchise right there. We built the whole franchise. They couldn't do that, Robert.
Yep.
They tried to build a whole franchise, and we figured out how to do it in about an hour. In an hour, we figured out what they couldn't do.
Holy crap, we are great,
We are fantastic.
fantastic.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to add to this? Any other loose ends you'd like to fix?
I mean, there's plot points, like who was making his making him turn into a werewolf, or who the actual political issues. We didn't really get into too much, but those would be things that you would figure out later on as you're writing. I don't think we got to go into each one of the details because we've just turned one movie into three movies. There's so much to go off there. But
we built the foundation.
yeah, we built the foundation. If we were to sit down and write a script, we would have a good foundation based purely off this podcast right here.
Yeah.
So Warner Brothers, if you're listening, $200 million, I could probably do that. Just saying, that's how much you paid for it the first time, and it barely got you your money back. I think the two of us could do better than the Waskowskis.
That's $200 million per movie, right? If you're trying to squeeze all three into $2 million,
no.
We're not going to be doing shit at that point.
I mean,
Unless you're going to dress everybody in plastic. Yeah, don't give me that face, okay? Listen, I mean, yeah, $200 million a pair. Make it a $600 million franchise. We'll make $1 billion overall. I'd make it $1 billion franchise. Boom, right there. Give me my money. Okay?
yeah.
That's how you do it. Yeah, I don't really have much else to add to it. I mean, there are other plots in the actual movie that I would rip out, but when you redo it all and go this route, I think it works great.
Yep.
I actually, this has turned out better than I was expecting going into this. This was a movie that after watching and us kind of talking, I was still unsure what we were going to do once we sat down and did this episode. But to be honest, I've actually enjoyed this episode. This turned out a lot better than I was expecting.
Oh yeah. I mean, again, the movie had so much potential, but it wasn't sure of itself, and then it tried to be too many things at once, and it rushed where it shouldn't. So, all we've done is split it up into three movies, put an actual tone to those movies, put a coherent plot to those, and stop trying to be deeper than it actually was. And I think it'll be a better movie now. So, that's my final thoughts on this. So, all right. I think that is it for us tonight. Thank you, everybody, for listening that has listened to us. And be sure to support us on Facebook at the Rewrites and Reboots podcast. On Twitter, what is our Twitter handle?
It's RR Podcast 1.
RR Podcast 1. And support us We have our Patreon up, yes.
Yes, that was on the last episode. We announced it.
Yes, I remember that. We do have a Patreon, so if you would like to support us and get some exclusives, such as our episode where we talked about some of the movies that we watched, but we could not figure out how to do them, or they weren't as bad as we thought, or they were so garbage we weren't gonna touch it.
Yeah, and we're going to do a lot more episodes on there. We've talked about doing like quick little like movie review episodes on there where they're just like sit down and look at a good movie and talk about why we like those movies as well. There's a lot of other great stuff that we're going to do on there, exclusive polls, all that kind of stuff. And if you have any movie that you think we should watch that you're like, man, this movie sucks, but there's something there, right? And you want to see where we go with it, drop us a message on Twitter or Facebook or wherever. Yeah. And you can check us out on Google Podcasts, Spotify. We're on iTunes now.
Woo!
Yeah, I looked it up because it never gave me the message. I was like, whatever happened to us getting on iTunes? I'm just there. Apparently, I've been on iTunes for a minute, just didn't know it because Anchor just forgot to notify me.
So if you're on a Apple or an iPod or iPhone, do they still have iPods?
I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't think they do iPods
I think
anymore.
It's just iPhones now.
You're
I don't
just
know.
Showing your age. That's what happened
Well,
right there.
I'm
do you
showing...
still have a Zoom? Do you still have a Zoom?
Yes, I still have a Zoom.
Oh, God.
It still works.
Shameful. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you being here. And until next time, my name was Richard.
I'm Robert.
And this is the Rewrites and Reboots podcast.